The Pittsburgh Steelers lose a tough one, 16-14 to the Baltimore Ravens. All the things that went wrong were big signs of what needs to change for the Steelers moving forward, and maybe the worst loss of the season as far as what hopes there could have been for the end of the season. We'll break it all down here on Locked On Steelers. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on the video if you enjoy it. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We think you make the Locked On Steelers podcast your first listen every day because we're your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can up to 10 times your money on any entry. First time users receive up to a 100 instant deposit match, 100%, instant deposit match up to $100 from promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On. PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. All right, Steelers fans, that was a tough one of the toughest of the season because it was so close to being in their grasp. You have a game, you have 3 interceptions, you get a blocked field goal, and you're 2 points from tying the game. And you look at so many opportunities that they had to win the game. If any of the Mitch Trubisky interception drives end up as 3 points because they were all in Ravens territory, the Steelers probably win this game. If the field goal that Chris Boswell kicked isn't blocked, they win this game. This was painful, but probably what was the most painful for the Steelers themselves was watching the Ravens just run the ball right down their throats in a game, in situations where they knew they had to run it. The Ravens were not coming out in this game trying to throw the ball, trying to trick anybody. Huntley went 8 of 12 for 88 yards. Brown went 3 of 5 for 16 yards. All of their offense came on the ground. And yes, the Steelers only allowed 16 points, and you should win games when you're 16 points, or when you only allow 16 points. But you still got to do better than you did if you're the Steelers defense, especially on that last drive, when you know all they're going to do is run it, and they still get first down. They get 6 yards in the first down run, and then they get you on third down for it, snapping your 4-game win streak you had over the Ravens. And, a lot of people want to point to schematics and this, that, and a third. The Steelers aren't having it because they feel like that would be an excuse. They weren't caught off guard. They were just whipped. And I think it's a sign of something that I said could come to pass during the offseason. And I think we're seeing it with the defensive front. But listen to Cam Heyward after the game. He's not confused. He's dejected. He's upset. He's disappointed. But he knows why the Steelers lost. They were physically just beat up front. Here's Cam Heyward in the Steelers locker room after the game.
He just didn't show enough awareness. And didn't get off tackles. Didn't get blockers enough to tackle. Down a quarterback. You're not going to continue to put quarterbacks under duress. They're just going to run the ball. And they had a lot of success today.
How much of a missed opportunity did today feel like for you guys?
I'll have to think about it a lot. But, it's a missed opportunity because we didn't take advantage of it. We have to just too many mistakes, especially late in the year. We commend them. They did their job. They got the job done. On defense, they got turnovers, got a big block by Calais Campbell, and then on offense, they sustained drives, got field goals when they needed, and got 1 touchdown.
Ken, did you guys get specifically what you were thinking you'd get on those last 3 runs?
Yeah, and that's the head scratcher because everything's downhill. You should be knowing where it's going by that point, and to not get off the field and just give our offense one more chance. That stings the most.
What do you say to your guys after this one as you guys move forward here?
Say less. Come ready for film tomorrow, and I screwed up on a numerous amount of plays. trying to do too much, and that's what we all did. And as a leader, I got to take more account for it.
Talking about the long run by
Yeah, I just tried to do too much, and I was playing those, and I was out of gap.
And that right there, Cam Heyward said, I pointed this out during the game. He just gave up a gap, and then he's talking about the 44-yard run that J.K. Dobbins ripped off right before his 4-yard touchdown run that put the Ravens up 10 in the first quarter. That was a play where I was like, Cam Heyward normally doesn't blow that, and he got double team pushed out of his hole, and he wasn't able to hold down his spot, and that's what kind of let everything fold in on the defense. And I think what you're seeing there, and you're hearing Cam saying, I tried to do too much. He's trying to make up for the other weaknesses in the defensive line. And this is just, I think, become the fact. The rest of this defensive line isn't good enough to stuff the run. They're better than last year. I will say that they're not, last year they were dead last in the NFL. But this year, they're giving up big runs. They're giving up consistent runs. The last 3 games, even the last 2 wins, the Colts were starting to run the ball on them. But they were able to they were able to settle it down. The offense kind of came in and saved them in the end. The Falcons were starting to run the ball on them. Then they got to stop and held them to a field goal. And then they pinned them on the 1-yard line and forced the Falcons to have to get aggressive through the air, which led to Minkah Fitzpatrick's interception. And to be frank, we'll get the offense in a bit. I'm not letting Mitch Trubisky and the offense off the hook at all by starting with the defense here. But this group, you were hoping to get this group in a situation where they could play downhill, they could be more aggressive, go after the ball, and make plays that way. But they weren't able to do so in this game. And I think that was a big part of it. But when you have a chance, when it's Lamar Jackson's not there, even Huntley's not back there. You got a third-string guy who, on one of his passes, missed by like 20 yards, just sell out and stop the run. And in 3 plays in the fourth quarter, after your offense got its second touchdown of the game, they didn't do that. And I think what this shows you is they need to go get dudes. And I mean, when I say dudes, I mean some bad dudes up front who can beat people up, eat people alive, and stuff the run. It is the core tenet of the Pittsburgh Steelers is that you stuff the run. It's why they improved it this year. And again, it has improved. No one's saying that they haven't made strides there, but it's clear especially on the interior defensive line, they need some young dudes who are going to beat people up. And I'm not saying illegal or injuries, but I'm saying like Cam Heyward in his prime. They need a guy who's going to come in and take on double teams and be physical and set the tone at the line of scrimmage, because that's what every great Steelers team has always been able to do. And if the hope was that this year that group could, with Larry Ogunjobi, they could find the answers for it. I think Larry Ogunjobi has spurts where he does well, but it's not consistent enough. He's also obviously hurt because he's been banged up week by week. And the guys behind him, Chris Wormley, who got hurt in this game, Tyson Alualu, who obviously I think he's just aged out of being a useful rotational guy. And even DeMarvin Leal at times in this game, they weren't up to stuff. That they need some thick, strong guys who can stand up front, stuff the run, and also get after the quarterback a little bit. It's something they haven't had. It's something they need to invest into. They've tried to hit in other areas in the NFL draft. I think I talked about it last year. If you remember, you were following this show. I was saying they should have found a way to get either one of the Georgia defensive tackles that were coming out in the first round, Davis or Wyatt. I thought they could have got one earlier than Leal. But hey, you thought you have your franchise quarterback in Kenny Pickett, and maybe you do. We'll get to that in a minute. And maybe you do have that. But they need to get run stuffers. They need to get guys who can disrupt offensive lines. Cam Heyward, I think, still is that guy. But as you can see, when he's talking about he's trying to do too much, that means he's trying to make up for other weaknesses, like when the people running up Montrevious Adams' gap, Chris Wormley's gap, just not being able to hold down spots and him trying to kind of make up for too much. I think Cam Heyward still has a lot of good playing time in him. Not too much. Like I think like 2 more years is about what the Steelers are going to get out of him. But I think it's clear they need to get him some real help. Even if it's a rookie next year, if it's a really talented rookie, they need to go get him. And it needs to be a priority, as does the offensive line. And I think that needs to be a big focus for the Steelers. And if there's not been a game that's shown it, I think this is one of those games that has absolutely put that on display. We'll get to more in just a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, so don't go away because we got to talk about Mitch Trubisky. I'm not letting the offense off the hook for this performance. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., Canada, or the U.K. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on and see how it fits into your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Ditch boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. Find Think Like a Champion now wherever you get your podcast. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off of it, we rarely know the grind for the path to greatness. Russell Wilson, alongside co-host Harry Wilson and the late Trevor Moawad, digs into high-performance athletes, artists, and leaders, push the boundaries of their potential. Here, two-time Super Bowl champion and MVP Von Miller delivers sharp insights in performing at your highest level in moments of extreme pressure. Or NCAA champion Tim Tebow discuss how to find your unique personal mission in the world. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts. Available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game. And y'all know when we do back-to-back ad reads, we keep it rolling here on Locked On Steelers. Let's keep it rolling, though, and let's switch into the offense. I'll get back to the defense in my final segment. But it's clear there was an offensive game plan that was set in here to work. The Steelers did move the ball. They were starting to run the ball at different points of the game. But you cannot throw three interceptions. You cannot have three interceptions in a game, let alone three interceptions in plus territory, and think that you're gonna win games. And the crazy thing is, if they don't have that field goal blocked by Calais Campbell, you probably still found a way to win this game. But I think we saw from Mitch Trubisky, he threw three interceptions. There were some people who were trying to say, "Oh, this wasn't his fault. That wasn't his fault," or Steven Sims shouldn't have ran this route. The first interception, he throws it over the middle. The Ravens, I believe, were in cover 2. And the Steelers had a few options over the middle. Pat Freiermuth was going deep over the middle, and Mitch Trubisky, that was like where the pass should have gone, but Pat Freiermuth got jammed at the line of scrimmage, and that got his route to be a little bit later. Mitch Trubisky didn't switch off of him, led to an interception. Don't believe me? He said it himself. In fact, he took that, and when we asked him about that and the third interception to Deontay Johnson when he threw the deep ball, he blamed two things: his eyes. Here's Mitch Trubisky after the game at the podium.
The thing about it, was it something, did they adjust to you maybe in terms of what you were doing, or did you maybe adjust less to them?
I mean, every week I'm prepared. I think we're moving the ball, and I think the problem was I was turning it over down the red zone. You got to come away with points, at least field goals. When you give up the football 3 times to a good team and a good defense, they're known for taking the ball away, and I just got to be smarter with my decisions and not forcing it down there. So credit to them, and I just tried to come in, do my job, and at times I was overly aggressive. I wanted to score in the red zone. I wanted to be aggressive. I think looking back at the film, once we look at it, I think I can be a lot better with my eyes, and then be smart and know when to check it down. So learning experience for sure.
Mitch was the one to Freiermuth looked like 82 was also in the area. Was that supposed to be to Pat and just a miscommunication?
It was. They did a good job collisioning Pat on the line of scrimmage, which made his route take a little longer. I stuck with him. Probably could have used done a better job with my eyes looking off. But yeah, when it just takes a little longer, 2 guys in the same spot, we'll have to look at it to see exactly what happened. But linebacker made a good play. So I was being aggressive, at times overly aggressive. Probably forced that one, especially early on the downs and first and second. I got to take care of the football so we can come away with points down there. So that's on me.
Mitch, the deep throw to Deontay that resulted in the interception for one. Was that the call or something you saw as the play unfolded?
The call as in what? Like throw him the ball?
Yeah.
I wanted to take a shot downfield to Deontay. I thought he did a good job going inside. He was getting behind him and stacked him. We ended up hitting it later in the fourth quarter, going the opposite direction. I just threw it a little too far, and I got to be better with my eyes. It looked like the free safety had to jump on it. That's why he got over the top there before Deontay did. So, Yeah, I wanted to go down the field, take a shot, and was too aggressive and could be better with my eyes.
And then what Queen got, just good play by him.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I kind of forced that one. I think I was going to Pat again down in the red zone. When linebackers are getting depth like that, there's probably somebody open underneath, so I'm going to have to go back and look at that one.
I mean, you can even hear Mitch Trubisky say it was my eyes, and he even talked about how, you know, with the third interception when he threw at halftime, or was it the second interception? They all run together now, but it's how rough that was. But you can even hear him sort of say, you know, like with the Deontay Johnson one where he threw it deep, he locked onto him and he threw it right to him. And he said, you know, he needed to be better with his eyes. Why? The Ravens had one deep safety. He needed to hold him to the other part of the field and then throw it his way and put it in a better spot. And he even said later in the press conference, I think it was, when he said, you know, he said on the deep ball that he had to Deontay Johnson in the fourth quarter, that when they got their last touchdown, and that was part of it. When he hit Deontay Johnson, it was the same play. The only difference was he looked off the safety. And I think these are just the things that I think Mitch Trubisky has continued to struggle with. We said this in the early weeks when he was a starter. His eyes were not good. He was not going through his progressions. And I brought this up during the game, and some people thought like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't mean what you think it means. And what I said was like, well, early in the season, Mitch Trubisky didn't throw over the middle a lot. Everyone was complaining about it. Now he's thrown 2 of his interceptions over the middle. And the third interception was a deep ball down the sideline, but it was from a middle defender. Now, what's the relevance to that? To how they called plays early in the season? And again, I didn't think it was also just being called plays. I think it was Mitch Trubisky just not going there because there were open receivers down the middle earlier in the season for the Steelers. But I think the biggest problem is Mitch Trubisky locks on with his eyes. He has to see his throws, and when you're locking on with your eyes, the players in the middle of the field, they're the ones that look at your eyes the most. The guys down the sideline, the cornerbacks, they're running with their guys. They can't afford to look in the backfield because if they do, their guy makes a double move and then they're gone for a touchdown. So I'm not saying that that's exactly why the Steelers didn't target the middle of the field earlier in the season a lot more. But I think maybe in Mitch's head, that was something that he was doing to try to avoid mistakes like that. And in this game, you know, again, any one of those interceptions isn't thrown and they at least get a field goal out of those drives, they probably win this game. And I think it shows what Kenny Pickett has been doing. He's been improving. Again, granted, Kenny Pickett, not the same, not an elite quarterback yet, not even I wouldn't even put him on the good. He's being a good manager in the last 4 games for the Steelers, and he was not turning the ball over. And lo and behold, they turn the ball over, they lose. And I think that this kind of showed what why they switched to Kenny Pickett. But I think it also shows that they probably should have switched to Kenny Pickett a lot earlier in the season to let him get his feet wet sooner so that he could kind of pick up momentum. And maybe you would have beaten the Jets. Maybe you would have beaten the Dolphins. You know, maybe you would have pulled off a couple more wins with him playing the way he was. But we see Mitch Trubisky, and he came off on fire in the first drive. He comes out, he's hitting guys, moves the ball down the field. The Steelers get a touchdown. And then at the end, but I think that's what you get with Mitch Trubisky is he can be really high and then really low really quickly. And you saw that in this game. He comes into the game, first possession, 5 plays, 58 yards or 64 yards, touchdown. The next 5 drives are interception, punt, interception, missed field goal. And then there was the touchdown. So you see that. And again, the Steelers knew what they were getting with Mitch Trubisky. They knew that he wasn't going to be the game changer, but they were hoping he could be a vet that could hold it down at his position. And he just hasn't been that guy. So it's unfortunate for the Steelers. It's unfortunate for Mitch Trubisky. I think Deontay Johnson had some better moments in this game. He was getting open. He still runs backwards when he gets the ball. Sometimes it drives me nuts. I think that George Pickens made some catches that were really solid. Pat Freiermuth made some plays. He was seen in a walking booth, though, after the game. We'll see what's up with that. The offensive line didn't have that great day, but again, this was a tough defensive front. We were wondering how they do. They gave up some pass rushes. They gave up some sacks. Looking here, looks like they gave up 2 sacks on the day. I think those are the early ones early on too. And then they didn't block well for the run. Najee Harris, 12 carries, 33 yards. Jaylen Warren, 3 carries, 11 yards. Benny Snell, 2 carries, 4 yards. And there were times the run game started to peak a little bit with Najee Harris, but eventually that stopped working. And I think you look at this and you're kind of back to where you were at the beginning of the season with Mitch Trubisky. And it's that when you have a guy who locks with his eyes on the quarterback as a quarterback, you lock your defense into tough situations to defend. You lock the rest of your offense in tough situations to sell anything, because now the defense isn't scared of your passing game, because they don't know because they know that you're not going to be in rhythm and kind of attack their weaknesses as much as you're going to go with whoever the primary read on your play was, and we just got to figure out who that was by watching your eyes, and then we'll make a play on it. So unfortunate for the Steelers, but I think it shows I think they're developing something with Kenny Pickett, because he's already doing stuff that's better than what Mitch Trubisky is, even when he's coming in and the team hasn't game planned for him. So I think we got to see what happens with Kenny Pickett. He's in the concussion protocol right now, which it's a weird situation. The Steelers, put him in the blue tent. He came back out, was fine, went back in, and then he was out for the game. Not a lot of explanations there, but that does seem to happen with the concussion protocol, is that they got tested. The fortunate thing was that he didn't have his bell rung when he went back out there. I think it was just like, whoa, hey guys, there's something else we see here. Let's get him in the locker room and actually do like a bigger test or a stronger test. And I think that's what happened. And then they were like, all right, yeah, you got to go. And unfortunately, they got it before he took another big hit in this game, because there was the sack that he took when he was slung to the ground. That was a tough one. But again, offense, clearly, I think it comes down to just Mitch Trubisky needing to be better with his eyes and needing to be better with, being a veteran quarterback who looks off defenses and understands where to go with the football. He wasn't in this game, and that proved truly costly. I don't think it's as much as a game plan or anything like that. I think they trusted him to make some right reads. He made some very wrong reads, and it put them in a tough spot. But again, there were ways in that plays into this game where I think the Steelers still should have won this game. And again, I think it plays into how this team needs to address itself moving forward with new additions, whether in free agency, the draft, or just plans and how they're going to sign people in the offseason. Because there's a lot of different things that this team needs to do to get better. We'll break more of those down in just a minute here on Locked On Steelers. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks, of course, is daily fantasy made easy. Prize Picks is the way that you should be playing daily fantasy, because you're not playing against a million people. You're just playing against Prize Picks. All you got to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they have more or less than their Prize Picks projections on their stats, then that means you win money. And not just money, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against others. You're just competing against the house and what Prize Picks selects for itself. Prize Picks includes NFL, NBA, NHL, and college sports, and so much more. So go to Prize Picks today and download the Prize Picks app, or go to prizepicks.com. You can sign up and play daily fantasy sports right now. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On, for prizepicks.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Wrapping up here as we get back to where I think that this team does need to go. First of all, I want to say I'm in a suit because I'm actually about to head over to Channel 11 for final words. So if I don't think I'll be able to air this because I have some editing to do after this before the show. But if you watch the show on Channel 11 in Pittsburgh, thank you for doing so. But I wanted to talk more about what this team's obvious needs are, because a lot of people are going to point to, they should go get a slot receiver because they're not getting enough slot production, and there's some really good receivers in this draft. They should go get a top cornerback, and I've been one on the top cornerback train. But I think if anything else, this game has shown us the Steelers need dogs in the trenches. They need people that are going to just beat you up, maul you, and I said it on defense, but I also mean it on offense, and that's something that I've been prioritizing. But I mean, Tyler Linderbaum, a rookie that I talked about on this very show. You can go back to some of my episodes in January and February about the Steelers in the NFL draft. I was like, he may be undersized, but he could be a weapon for the Steelers on the offensive line. And he was pretty good for the Ravens in this game. I think the Steelers need to take a hard look at those top 3 picks that they're getting in this draft and need to invest them on either side of the trenches. both, preferably. But this is a team that right now with the way they're built, it's obvious when Najee Harris gets a hole, he's hitting it. And a lot of times today, they just didn't have holes, and that I think that played a lot into what was going on. When he did have holes, he was hitting them hard. But this team isn't going to be, throw all over them for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, and Ben Roethlisberger throwing 6 touchdowns against the Ravens back in 2014. Those days ain't here for a while. But what the Steelers can be, and they have a guy in Andy Weidel from the Eagles who they brought over, and he's in their GM office now. They need to go get those type of guys in the trenches who can make them kind of like the Eagles. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to do too much for the Eagles. Why? Because his offensive line kicks butt, and his defense kicks butt because their defensive line kicks butt. And you can go back to that 2019 season when the Steelers defense was playing well, and Minkah Fitzpatrick was a huge part of it, but everything gets set up because the defensive line is kicking everyone's butts. And the Steelers defensive line hasn't been dominant since Tuitt had stopped playing in 2020. And I think it's a clear connection to needing not just one, but 2 or 3 dominant forces up front to stifle the run, turn people around, and get after the quarterback and force them into more predictable situations. And the Cam Heyward even said they also need to get after the quarterback in this game. They did not do that enough. And granted, I think some of it was also trying to contain mobile quarterbacks for the Ravens. And they finished this game with 2 sacks, but you needed more than that. TJ Watt got 1, Wormley and Alualu split 1. But you needed more than that. And you also needed to get more run stuffs in this game. And I think it all starts with up front. I think that, part of what we talked about with like Miles Jack and Devin Bush, I think that they're serviceable linebackers right now. Devin Bush still isn't worth the pick that they traded up to get him with. And there's serviceable linebackers, but they're not killers, and they need killers up front. And if you don't have killers up front, you got to have killers at linebacker. Preferably, you got both. But the Steelers need to make a considerable effort to make sure that both of the sides of the ball, both sides of the trenches, they're able to dominate moving forward. And this is a different team if that's the case. Because you know what? Kenny Pickett doesn't get hurt in this game if Kevin Dotson and Mason Cole don't let a guy walk right up a gap and hit him in the first quarter and slam him. This is a different game if the defensive line stuffs the run. Those 2 things alone, which are purely on the linemen on either side of the ball, they do those 2 things, they win this game. They also probably win a few more games earlier in the season. And I think it shows, the Steelers, they've tried to invest in other places, and they've gotten some good results here and there from other guys. But they haven't gotten enough from the smaller investments they've made into these other groups. So moving forward, the Steelers, we still have a lot to see. They got to play the Panthers this week on the road. And I think each game right now, this is going to be the watch time to see who can earn their stripes, who can earn their place on the field, who wants to part of the next Steelers when they revamp and do serious work to improve their offense and defensive lines. Because if they don't, we're going to see a similar team next year. And we probably will see a similar team next year. It's not going to be like completely different. But I think there needs to be a new partner next to Cam Heyward in the first line. I think they need a couple extra tough rotational dudes on the secondary defensive line, and they need to at least add 2 serious assets to the offensive line. Guard, tackle, whatever. I think Mason Cole's still a guy that you can keep around. I think James Daniels has really improved. I think Chooks is fine where he's at. But Kevin Dotson could be better. He's very roller coastery. Some days he's really good. Some days he's really bad. Dan Moore Jr., But need at least 2 dominant guys in the offensive line and then a dominant presence in the defensive line with good role players behind them to kind of make that defensive line rotation a strong asset again. It's just not right now. It's been enough to win some games, and it's been enough to kind of contain certain teams. but it hasn't been enough for the Steelers to win in the crucial moments. And this had several crucial moments where either one of those groups could have taken over and changed the game. We'll give our stars and skulls very soon here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. We got the Tuesday edition. We'll have Wes Euler of Steeler Nation Radio talking with us about those stars and skulls. I'm sure a lot of y'all got stars and skulls suggestion. Hit me up at Carter Critiques. Give me some skulls and stars grades that you think that should be doled out for certain guys. And I saw some people giving me some skull grades for Mitch Trubisky and other guys. We'll get into that in a minute when we review the film. But again, I'm Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers podcast. Also read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thanks so much for checking out my work here. You can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Like the show if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes. Be back tomorrow with our grades segment here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.